us.
And I'm James.
And this is the C7 Corvette ZR1. ZR1. Whatever.
This is the ZR1, the absolute peak of the C7 generation of Corvette. They threw everything at it. With an upgraded Z06 engine, it makes 755 horsepower, but it's a car that's as much made for straight-line violence as it is crushing cornering forces. And since we've already tested the now legendary Dodge Viper ACR, a street car that has topped our leaderboard, let's see how Chevy's answer fares at our track, and whether or not it too shall become a legend.
I once said that happiness is on the other side of 7,000 RPM. It turns out insanity is on the other side of 700 horsepower. And that is a lot of performance for $140,000 Canadian, which is what this was when it came out. That's less than what base C8s are going for now.
Except it's not 140 grand anymore. You see, cars like these have skyrocketed in price. If you want a ZR1 now, you're going to have to shell out about 250 grand Canadian. That's $100,000 more than when they were new. That's a big price, and it's caused by a small problem. You see, there's no inventory in new cars right now, which has driven up the price of both new and used cars. And the reason for that, apparently, is due to a shortage of these. Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Also, this is a crisp, not a chip. Whatever the reason, it's expensive, so it better be good. And this car is very, 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 very good. Let's start with the power. Supercharged. Insane sound coming through the cabin. I think it's louder in here than it is outside, which is great because I'm the one that wants to experience it. Now, it doesn't rev out much. It's no 911 GT3, but compared to the Viper, it's a much more charismatic engine. The GT3 kind of winds up to 9,000 RPM in this musical note, and the Viper kind of just drones. This is the equivalent of someone just shaking you awake. There's so much urgency. I mean, this is a car that's made to put lap times on the board and smiles on your faces. That's what it's all about. That's why you're now paying, for some reason, $250,000. And it does that! Dangerously! That is exhilarating. Also, we have it today in the 8-speed automatic. You can get this in a manual, but this is the 8-speed. And I wonder if it might just be the only weak point of this car, because Thomas is going to talk about the handling a bit more later and the insane grip levels. But from a transmission point of view, even though the shifts themselves are quite quick, they take a second to decide that they want to shift after you've hit the paddle. So you kind of have to time it. If you wait till the red line, you're going to hit the rev limiter for a second. And if I switch it to automatic mode, I've lost that sense of control. It doesn't seem to be able to work out when it should shift. So I still prefer the manual shift mode, but I think faced with the decision, I'd prefer the manual. One thing's for certain. Very few cars move in a straight line the way this car does.
Yeah, I concur. I concur with James. It's got some poke. Oh my God, and the noise too. It's not as much supercharger and induction noise as it is exhaust. Okay, the chassis, what do we have here? This has got the ZTK package, which gives it specially tuned dampers, different springs, the big wing, and some Cup 2 tires. And I can tell you that it makes this car on our tight little twisty track, a type of track where it shouldn't belong, right at home. Those dampers are amazing. It's just soaking everything up. There's bumps at this track that I usually avoid in certain sports cars. I'm not even avoiding them in this. I can just drive right over it. And the steering is really heavy, and it just weights up in such a perfectly natural fashion in the corners. It is a failing of the C8. It does have steering as good as this. I guess we'll have to wait and see what the Z06 and the ZR1 of the C8 generation do, but as far as the base C8 goes, it's got a numb front end compared to this. This is telling me what's going on. There's an apex, there's an apex. Very characteristic of a C7. If you go in on the brakes or off throttle, corner entry oversteers. Makes it a bit of a handful. You gotta really pay attention. So basically, you've got oversteer on corner entry, and then if you even think about using the throttle, you've got oversteer on exit too. Yeah, like the ACR, it's not super easy to do that. It doesn't want to. It wants to grip. But of course you can. You have 755 horsepower. You can do whatever you want. Do a drift. You know, I've always wanted to drive this car ever since I saw it come out, and as a send-off for the C7 chassis, this is one to remember. It really is. This is one of the all-time great Corvettes.
Okay, the lap time. As usual, our rules are 1 warm-up lap and only 3 hot laps, and you're watching the fastest lap. So, the ZR1. This is the only other car, other than the Viper that we've tested, where I opted for a racing suit. It's a very serious machine and the speeds are high. I drove it with all of the traction and stability off and in manual shifting mode because the transmission just couldn't seem to figure out when to shift. But other than that, it's an amazing car at the limit. It's definitely more prone to oversteer than the Viper and not as planted, so I'm being incredibly careful with the throttle to try and get as much power down as I can coming out of the corners. This is a very engaging car to drive, and once you get the hang of the speed and the handling characteristics, it's actually quite an easy car to drive fast. Let's finish the lap.
Okay.
Oh, I'm buzzing for you. This car excited me so much more than I thought it would. I had no preconceived notions.
It's a very serious but very exciting car. Also I know we already talked about the steering weight, but like it really
weights
you
up.
really weights up.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like a fully unassisted steering car.
Well, the Cup 2s massively help with that.
Yes, they always add some weight. Okay, so do you remember the top few cars?
Yes, the top is currently occupied in order BAC Mono,
Yep.
ACR Viper,
Yep.
GT3. They occupy the 7s,
Yep.
followed by the 10s, which are the two CSs, the M2 and the M5.
Right. Okay. So you ready?
So what, you don't want to hear my guess?
I do. I'm sorry. Yes, I do want to hear your guess. Go ahead.
I didn't really have one. I just
I do.
thought-
Okay.
I'm guessing halfway in between, at 1085.
What do you mean? What do you mean your guess is 1085?
It's exactly halfway between the 7s and the 10s. And that's, I think, where this would
You've been
fit.
doing this too long. You've been doing this. So that's exactly right.
It's right?
It's exactly right.
I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket.
It is. This did a 108.59.
Wow, I got that within a tenth.
Yeah. Okay. Be excited about the car, not your guess, James. I've never seen him
So
this
last
happy
time I
ever.
learned about the Viper time, you also showed me the stupid T-shirt with the weight compressed less and less.
That was amazing.
I
Yeah.
actually don't, by the way, I don't remember what that phrase is, ever.
It's the lighter air. They made the air compressing lighter air conditioning
Anyway.
weightless. Got it. Nailed it.
That's a nuts time for a nuts car.
It is a nuts car. And you know what? That makes perfect sense. Because, okay, honestly, the transmission was the biggest issue for me as the driver.
Yeah, you'd rather have the...
I'd rather have a manual.
And the
just 'cause,
Boromir lift.
I tried it. The Boromir lift. I tried it in auto, and it didn't jive with me. It wasn't like figuring out the corners exactly. And then I just had to run it in manual mode, and I just basically had to be constantly thinking about the shifts.
I don't remember that being the case on the Camaro, on the ZR1.
No, the Camaro was a little bit faster.
The 10-speed?
It was a
Yeah.
little bit faster. Something to do with the tuning in this. I don't really know what it is. But the pull on the straights,
And the noise.
and it's just wicked. It's just wicked. This is more fun to drive than the Viper ACR.
It is, and it's less oppressive inside.
Yes. Also, like with a helmet, I fit comfortably. Like as a driver, like over 6 feet, you'd probably be able to track this car. It's honestly it is a really, really, really great vehicle. And I'd been kind of like afraid of this car ever since I saw it, because I was
Yeah.
like, I've driven the C7 around the track a lot, and that car is pretty dicey going into corners. I figured
the
this
C7,
would be,
the Z06 you mean?
yes, Z06. Sorry, yes,
yeah.
Z06
This is also a C7.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. So the Z06 was pretty dicey going into the corners. This one does do the same corner entry oversteer, but it's not. It's more planted. It's more drivable.
Yeah, right now you're not as flustered as you were in the Viper.
The Viper was like very frustrating because it was so like hot and compact and loud.
Yeah.
This one was a much nicer thing to drive.
It's more
right?
car-like.
It is. Also, the damping is fantastic in this. Like, there's a bump on the outside of like I think turn 6 that I always miss with cars. Didn't have to miss it in this. I just go right over it.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's like some of the best damping I've seen in a track car.
But do you know what this has in common with the Viper?
What's that?
They're both a fortune now.
I know.
And
Like,
that-
how much is this? How much can you get this?
These are $250 now, Canadian. And you know what I've noticed?
That's crazy.
I was like, no one panics
Yeah.
when everything goes according to plan.
Yes.
You know, if a rare Ferrari doesn't lose value,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Nobody, if a Lamborghini that cost 2 million is now 3 million,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
But if I tell someone that their favorite little Corvette is now 250 grand, everyone loses
Everyone
their
loses their
minds.
minds.
You wanna know how I got these cars? I over-leveraged to remortgage my house. Like,
Did you have a coffee today? You don't normally drink coffee.
I don't drink caffeine.
Caffee.
I don't think people have said it enough. We've witnessed the most ridiculous surge in used car
Huge
prices.
surge. This is you can get these for cheaper in the U.S. than you can in Canada. There's more of them.
And there is a mid-engine Z06 coming.
Yes.
So how long can this maintain its superiority?
I think, well, being the last front-engine rear-drive Corvette ever, and like the halo of the entire front-engine rear-drive like lineage,
Yes.
this will probably do fine.
to some people this is the last true
This is
Corvette.
the last true Corvette to
Yeah.
them, right? And to be perfectly honest, it has this like brutality in a straight line that I
Yeah.
really the C8 is going to be a lot more European. This feels just like being like beaten in the back with a baseball bat wrapped in an American flag. It's wonderful. It really is. I actually like
Someone's
it.
had a rough childhood. All right, so it looks different to Z06. Not crazy different.
The front end is significantly different though.
Yes,
Like,
the grill. I think they've done a great job with this.
this looks fantastic.
There's a lot of decals on this at the moment.
It is, yeah, because the owner tracks it and races it. But the the hood is really cool because like that is a little cowling over top of the intake manifold, and when the hood comes up, there's a big hole.
Just big hole.
It's really cool.
Yeah. It's like the tank tops where it goes all the way down. You can just see most of someone's body.
That was my first thought as well.
Yeah. I saw it the other day.
Okay.
It's got the wheels, it's got more carbon fiber, and
Yeah.
then you've got this nuts wing because this has that ZTK
Speaking
package.
of nuts wings, though, it is a nuts wing, but it is not as nuts as the Viper ACR with
Oh,
the...
we looked at the downforce.
With the yes,
Yeah.
this does
It's like-
750 pounds of downforce, I think.
I think it's like 900 and something, and then
But the Viper does like
17 something.
like 14 or 17. Yeah, it's significantly
We'll
more.
put the real numbers somewhere.
We don't remember them.
Yeah, it's a
one's
big
under
difference.
1,000, one's over 1,000. But no, seriously, this is a great looking car. Like the proportions of the C7 were always fantastic. I love the way that this kind of the rear end sits and how long the hood is.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's a great looking car.
It's
I think
fantastic.
great.
I think though, the C8 mastered the look of the new cabin. So I'm curious what happens when you jump back, even just a couple of years.
Okay.
See if it's held up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the C8 has done a great job bringing this into the modern world.
Yeah. It did. This is a bit. Well, I mean, this is the end of the C7.
It is the end.
Right.
And
So
it's a lot more palatable at the MSRP of 140.
yeah.
Now it's 250. It starts to, like, you're competing with new GT3s.
This is the price of a new GT3.
Yeah, and that starts to
I
become,
mean, like, to be fair, performance-wise, though, they're pretty close.
They
GT3
are.
just took it.
they
out
are.
here.
And this is more insane.
This is more fun, I would say,
Yeah.
in its own way. The GT3 is more like, precision. This is more like just excitement. But no, there's lots of stuff in here that I really dig, right? We got the leather everywhere, stitching, right? There's carbon fiber everywhere on the steering wheel, on the dashboard. There's Alcantara. It says ZR1 right there, which is really neat.
Oh, so you're sticking to Z now?
I've been flopping back and forth, flippity flopping. If I say an equal number of each, I can't upset everyone because Americans feel that they are 50% of the world.
I think you'll upset everyone. You'll upset everyone by doing that.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, so listen, there's not a lot of bad stuff in here. I just think the overall design has not aged super well. So I mean, the seats are also, these are not the full carbon fiber kind of bucket things.
Right.
These are those are a little bit better for a tall person, I've heard.
Those are better.
Yeah.
But this is strange because it's got the ZTK, it's got all the crazy performance stuff.
Yes.
You just thought you'd go for the buckets.
I don't mind these seats actually. They held me in just fine. I find them pretty comfortable, right? You know what dominates the interior of this car is that massive cowling.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's like you can't even like you can't see anything in the road in front of you. Parking this is not super.
It's a carbon fiber buttress.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
That's the first time in my life I've used the word buttress. I hope it's correct.
That's not correct, but I was just going to give it to you.
Buttress.
Anyway, this is not bad. I think this car's about performance. No one's going to care or remember this stuff. They're going to remember 755 horsepower, right? They're going to remember supercharged V8. Like that's the things that people are going to take home.
All right, so here's a tough question.
They're going to remember 16 injectors, right?
Yes, that is a lot of vaccines. So here's a question for you, a tough question.
Yeah. Okay.
Similar price.
Mm-hmm.
Manual, all things the same. Viper ACR or Corvette ZR1?
That's honestly a difficult question.
Yeah.
Because this is actually a little bit more fun to drive around the track.
And potentially more livable in the world.
I'd say definitely more livable.
But
actually.
it doesn't have nearly the presence.
No, the Viper ACR feels more collectible. More
When we saw that, we all went,
we're like, what on earth is that? Yeah, it has that like, holy crap, this thing is neat. And like you get to tell crazy stories about the Viper. Like the designer put it on the back of his trailer and tried to tow it, and it reduced his top speed on the highway because there's so much downforce, right? Like that Viper is still to this day one of the most insane things I've ever driven. And I think in terms of specialness, it's just above this. But in terms of ownership, this one is probably nicer to actually have.
I agree.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there we have it. In a duel of Viper ACR versus ZR1, the Corvette represents the more livable, animated option. No, it doesn't quite match up to the ACR's time on our track, but we are still talking about the absolute upper echelon of American performance cars here. The question for this Corvette, then, is will the incoming C8 Z06 and ZR1 variants be so good that they make this car just another page in Corvette history? Or will the C7 ZR1 always stand on its own? We'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for watching.